All right, let's dive in. Back to basics today. Personal finance, the fundamentals. We're talking money management, that kind of thing. This deep dive, we're going to be working from a text all about basic finance concepts. So
Hmm.
think of it like we're laying the groundwork,
Yeah.
right? Getting comfy with all the terms and the big ideas behind smart money management.
Yeah, you got to know the rules of the game before you can play, right? And the cool thing is, personal finance, it's not rocket science. It's all about a few key principles, getting those down, and then applying them to your own life.
So our source material here, it jumps right into earning income. And it lays out these two main ways to do it. Selling your labor, which I get, that's working, and then selling your capital.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm not quite as clear on that second one. What does it mean to sell your capital?
That's where the world of investing comes in. Put your money to work for you. Instead of just letting it sit there in a bank account, it's out there earning you more money.
Yeah.
You plant a seed, it grows into a tree, then eventually you get some fruit, right?
Okay, I like that analogy. So how does that actually work in practice? What are some ways that you can sell your capital?
Well, think about lending money. You earn interest, right? That's essentially renting out your money to somebody else. Then you've got things like buying stocks, which means you own a little piece of a company, and you can benefit if that company grows and makes a profit.
So basically, your money is making more money, either through interest or growth in the value of your investment. But before we get too deep into investing, I think we need to talk about managing the money we already have.
You got it. Earning income, that's just one side of the coin. The other side is managing those expenses, and that's where budgeting comes in.
Because if you're making good money but spending more than you bring in, you're not going to get very far financially.
Nope. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. You can pour all the water you want, but it's just going to keep draining out.
So a budget helps us patch up those holes, so to speak. But how do we actually create a budget that works for us?
Well, first things first. Got to figure out where your money's going. Track your spending for a month or two, put your expenses into categories. Then you can see where you might be able to cut back a bit. From there, you got to allocate your income, right? Decide how much goes to things like housing, food, transportation, all that good stuff.
Sounds like a lot of work. Anything out there to make budgeting a little easier?
Oh, tons of stuff. You've got budgeting apps. They can track everything for you automatically and give you a nice visual breakdown of your spending. There are also different budgeting methods you can try, like the 50-30-20 rule, 50% for needs, 30% for wants, and 20% for savings and debt repayment.
It's a good starting point, right? Gives you a framework,
Right.
but you can always tweak it to fit your own needs and priorities. What if you make a budget and you see you're spending more than you earn?
Well, that's what we call a budget deficit. It means you're going to have to make some choices. Increase your income, cut back on those expenses, or borrow money to cover the difference.
And borrowing money, of course, that usually means interest added on. Can be a slippery slope.
For sure. That's why it's super important to get a grip on those spending habits and make a budget you can actually stick to. Now, on the flip side, if you're spending less than you earn, that's a budget surplus, which is a pretty sweet spot to be in.
Yeah, because then you got options, right? You can save that extra money, invest it, or use it to pay down debt faster.
Exactly. Financial flexibility. You're in control. Now, let's talk about something that can be a little tricky. Opportunity costs and sunk costs.
Those are the hidden costs lurking behind every financial decision, right?
You got it. Opportunity cost is basically the value of the next best thing you're giving up when you make a choice. So, say you're deciding between renting an apartment or buying a house. If you choose renting, the opportunity cost might be missing out on the potential growth and value of owning a home. On the other hand, if you buy, maybe you're giving up the flexibility of renting or the chance to invest that money somewhere else.
So like every financial decision, there's this ripple effect, right? With consequences, some you can see, some you can't.
Exactly. Now, sunk costs, those are expenses that are gone, done over. No matter how much you regret that decision, you can't get that money back.
So if I bought a concert ticket and then got sick, I shouldn't feel like I have to go just because I spent the money.
Nope. Money's gone.
Yeah.
You got to make the decision that's best for you right now, not based on something you can't change.
This is making me rethink all sorts of financial decisions I've made, good and bad ones.
And that's the point. Knowing about these hidden costs, it helps you make better choices in the future.
Okay, so we've covered income, expenses, and these sneaky hidden costs. Now, I'm really curious to learn more about assets, the building blocks of wealth, right?
Assets, yeah. They're basically anything of value that you own.
Hmm.
And they play a huge role in reaching your financial goals. We'll dig into that next. So assets, they're kind of like tools, In your financial toolbox, they can help you store your wealth, generate income. Some can even reduce your future expenses.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
What are some common examples of assets then?
Hmm. Let's start simple. A savings account, right? Keeps your money safe, earns a little interest. Then there's things like real estate. Owning a home, that can be a great investment. Could go up in value over time. Plus, they're not paying rent.
And of course, we talked about stocks earlier. That whole selling capital thing.
Right. Stocks, you own a little piece of a company, could benefit from its growth, get some profits. Don't forget bonds either. Basically, you're lending money to a government or a company. They pay you interest regularly.
Wow, so many different types of assets.
Yeah.
How do you know which ones are right for you?
Well, got to think about your goals, right? What are you aiming for financially? And how much risk are you comfortable with? If you're saving for a down payment on a house, maybe in a few years, you'll probably want assets that are pretty low risk, likely to hold their value.
But if you're investing for retirement way down the line, then you might be okay with some riskier assets, ones that could grow more.
Exactly. Got to find that balance, what works for you and your goals. And speaking of goals, how do we finance them? Our source material talks about debt and equity as the two main ways.
Okay, so debt, that's borrowing money. And equity, that's about ownership, right? Can you break those down a little more for me?
Sure. When you take out a loan, you're creating debt. You got to pay that money back, usually with interest over a certain amount of time.
Like a mortgage on a house or student loans for education.
Perfect examples. Now, equity, you're not borrowing money, you're investing your own capital. And in exchange, you get ownership in something.
So like if I buy stock in a company, I'm basically a part owner of that company.
Exactly. You could benefit if the company does well through dividends or your shares increasing in value.
But there's also the chance you could do poorly and you lose money.
That's the thing, right? Every investment, there's some level of risk. You never know for sure how it'll turn out.
So how do you decide, debt or equity, for financing your goals?
Depends on your situation, how much risk you're willing to take. Debt can be a great tool. Helps you achieve things you might not be able to otherwise. But gotta use it responsibly. Don't take on more than you can handle.
And equity could have higher returns, but it's also riskier?
You got it. Gotta weigh those costs and benefits, make choices that fit your overall financial plan. This is starting to make sense, like putting together a puzzle.
Yeah, it is. One piece at a time.
Yeah.
But there's one concept that keeps popping up. Diversification. Why is that so important?
Well, imagine this. You put all your eggs in one basket, and then, whoops, you drop the basket.
Oof, not a good situation.
Nope. Diversification is about spreading that risk. Instead of putting all your money in one stock or one type of asset, you spread it out.
So if one investment tanks, you're not completely sunk.
Exactly. And diversification, it's not just for investments. You can diversify your income too.
Oh, interesting. So instead of just relying on your job, maybe you have a side hustle, some rental income, investments that generate passive income.
Exactly. More income sources, more security, especially if things get uncertain. So diversification, it's about managing risk, protecting what you've earned, building a stronger financial foundation.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like a safety net for your finances. And you can use it in almost every part of your financial life, right?
You got it. Now, we've been talking a lot about the practical stuff, but let's be real. Our source material doesn't really get into this, but what about the emotional side of money? How do our feelings play into our financial decisions?
Oh, that's a great point. Our emotions. They can definitely mess with our money choices. Fear, greed, anxiety, all that can influence what we do with our money. Sometimes for the better, sometimes not so much.
So how can we be more aware of that? Make sure our emotions aren't leading us down the wrong path.
Self-awareness is key.
Right.
Pay attention to how you feel when you're making a financial decision. You feeling pressured, excited, overwhelmed. If you're getting super emotional, maybe take a step back. Take some time to process those feelings before making a big decision. And it helps to have a plan, right? If you have a clear financial roadmap, you're less likely to make impulsive decisions based on how you're feeling in the moment.
You got it. Like having a financial safety net, not just for unexpected expenses, but for those unexpected emotional swings too. And hey, it's okay to ask for help if you're struggling with all that. There are financial therapists, counselors. They specialize in helping people with these exact challenges.
Yeah, just like any other part of our well-being, if you're struggling, it's okay to reach out for support. Now, want to shift gears a bit. Explore something that's connected to personal finance, but often overlooked. It's the idea of value.
Value, you mean like what something's worth?
Yeah, but it's more than that. We tend to think of value in terms of money, But there's also intrinsic value, emotional value, even social value.
Right, right. Can you give me an example of how that applies to personal finance?
Sure, let's say you're thinking about buying a new car. You could just focus on the price tag, try to get the cheapest one.
Which is what a lot of people do, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
But what if you also thought about the value that car would bring to your life?
So, like, how it would affect your commute, your ability to travel, maybe even your sense of freedom and independence.
Exactly. If you consider those things, things that aren't just about money, maybe you realize that a slightly pricier car, one that really fits your needs and makes you happy,
Yeah.
that might actually be a better value in the long run.
That's a good point. It's like shifting your thinking, right? From just a transaction to a bigger picture view.
Yeah.
And this whole idea of value, you can use it for all sorts of financial decisions. Picking a career, investing your money, all of it.
So it's about making sure your financial choices match your values, your priorities.
Exactly. Making sure your money is working for you, not just bringing in more cash, but helping you create a life that has meaning, that makes you happy. This is good stuff. It's like we're taking personal finance to another level.
It is. Going beyond just the numbers, connecting it to our values, what we really care about. And that's where the real magic happens, right?
You got it. When you line up your finances with your values, you create this sense of purpose, intentionality. It's not just about the money anymore.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I'm seeing personal finance in a whole new way.
And that's what it's all about, giving you the power to make choices that match your values, your goals, your vision for the future.
Speaking of the future, our source material doesn't really talk about retirement planning.
True, but I think it's a crucial part of any conversation about personal finance. Got to plan for those golden years.
Absolutely. It's about setting yourself up for financial security and freedom later in life.
Right, and all these principles we've been talking about, they apply to retirement planning too.
So, starting early, having that budget surplus, investing smart, diversifying your investments, those are all key to a comfortable retirement.
You got it. And it's never too early to start thinking about this stuff.
Yeah, even if retirement feels ages away, the choices we make now, they can really impact our financial well-being down the line.
It's like planting a seed, right? That'll grow into this big, strong tree. Gives you shade and shelter for years to come.
Love that analogy. It really shows the power of compound growth, that whole snowball effect, and how important it is to think long-term with your finances. This conversation has been so helpful. I feel way more confident and knowledgeable about this stuff now.
That's what we're here for, giving you the power to make informed choices, take control of your financial future.
And I'm excited to keep learning, keep exploring all these different parts of personal finance.
The best part is, it's a journey that never really ends. Always something new to learn, new strategies to try, new ways to get smarter about your money.
This deep dive has given me such a solid foundation to build on. Now, I want to dig deeper into some specific areas, like investing, managing debt, planning for retirement.
The cool thing is, there are so many paths you can take. Focus on what's most important to you right now, where you are in life, then branch out from there.
It's like going on a big adventure. Each step gets you closer to financial freedom and well-being.
Along the way, you'll discover new things, gain experience, build a stronger, more resilient financial future. This is really inspiring. I'm feeling ready to take action, start putting all this into practice.
I hear ya. And remember, you don't have to go it alone. There are resources, people to help you, a whole community of folks who are on the same journey.
That's right. Knowing you're not alone, that makes a big difference. Now, before we wrap up, any last bits of advice for our listeners? I think the most important thing, be patient, be persistent.
Financial success, it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah,
Takes time, effort. Got to be willing to learn and adapt as you go.
exactly. And don't be afraid to mess up.
Everyone makes mistakes, especially with money. The important thing is to learn from them and keep going.
You got it. Remember, the journey itself, that's just as important as reaching the destination. So enjoy the process, celebrate the wins, learn from the setbacks, and most importantly, have fun with it.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks so much for sharing your knowledge and insights with us today.
Anytime. I love talking about personal finance, helping people on their path to financial well-being.
I think our listeners will agree this deep dive has been super informative and empowering,
Hopefully it's made them curious, made them want to learn even more.
and that they feel more confident, more prepared to take charge of their finances, build a better financial future.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, personal finance, it's about more than just the money. It's about freedom, security, being able to live a life that matches your values, your dreams.
It really is. It's easy to get lost in the weeds, just focusing on the day-to-day of managing money. But in the end, it's about using those resources to build a life you truly enjoy.
That's it. Making those financial choices match up with what you value, using money as a tool to reach your goals and have a life that feels good.
Well said. We've covered so much ground today,
Hmm.
from income and expenses to different kinds of assets and how to build wealth, and of course, the whole debt versus equity thing.
Yeah, and we talked about how important diversification is, not just with investments, but with your income too.
Right? Spreading out the risk, building that financial safety net.
And we even touched on the emotional side, how our feelings can really mess with our financial decisions.
It's like we peeled back the layers of personal finance, went beyond the numbers, looked at the psychology and the values that shape our choices.
And it all comes down to giving yourself the power to make smart choices, decisions that fit with your vision for the future.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Little challenge, I like it.
Knowing everything we've talked about today, what's one small step our listeners can take right now to improve their financial well-being? Doesn't have to be a big, crazy change. Just a little something they can do today to get moving in the right direction.
That's a great question. Hopefully it gets people thinking, gets them to take action. It could be something as simple as setting up a budget, automating a savings transfer, or even just taking a few minutes to learn about a new financial concept.
Every journey starts with a single step, right?
Yeah. And even the smallest things, they can make a big difference over time, lead to some really positive changes in your financial life.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into personal finance. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
And to everyone listening, remember, personal finance, it's not about being deprived or restricted. It's about empowerment, freedom, using your resources wisely to create a life you love.
Keep learning, keep growing, keep striving towards financial well-being.